The quiet hum of space was suddenly broken by a strange signal, one that Earth's top scientists had never seen before. It wasn't just any distress call. This message was different. It was clear, urgent, and seemed to come from a place far beyond the stars. For days, the signal was a mystery, but when the encryption was finally cracked, the truth was revealed. It was a plea for help from an alien girl. Her name was Lyra. She had sent the message herself, her voice filled with fear and desperation. "Help me. I am being hunted by my own people. They want me dead for what I know. Please, humans, only you can save me." Lyra wasn't just any alien. She came from a race called the Vorilians, a highly advanced species that had dominated entire star systems. But there was a dark side to the Vorilian Empire, and Lyra had uncovered something that could bring it all down. The Vorilians had been experimenting with their own DNA, creating soldiers who were stronger and faster than normal beings. They had become more violent, more dangerous, and they ruled through fear. Lyra had discovered their plans, but instead of being praised for her intelligence, she had been branded a traitor and sentenced to death. Her only chance was to find someone, anyone, who could help. And she had turned to Earth. Why? Because humans, despite their primitive technology, had something the Vorilians didn't: heart. Lyra believed that humanity might still care about justice and fairness, something her own people had lost. She pleaded for them to come and save her, to stop the Vorilian government from turning the galaxy into a dark, enslaved place. At first, the message was dismissed. No one believed that an alien, especially one from such a powerful civilization, would come to Earth for help. Governments and space agencies around the world thought it was a trick or a message meant to distract them. But the urgency in Lyra's voice couldn't be ignored. Eventually, Earth's leaders decided to take action, albeit cautiously. They knew this might be a trap, but they also understood that the risks were too great to ignore. If Lyra's message was true, it could be the start of something much larger, something that could change the future of Earth forever. The United Nations formed a special task force consisting of the best soldiers, scientists, and strategists. They didn't know exactly where to find Lyra or what to expect when they did, but they were determined to investigate. Colonel Sarah Hale, a battle-hardened leader known for her sharp instincts and strategic mind, was chosen to lead the mission. Alongside her was Dr. Aaron Price, a brilliant scientist and alien language expert. The team had one goal: find Lyra and bring her back to Earth, alive. The journey would take them to the heart of the galaxy. They had no idea what they were walking into, but one thing was certain: the fate of an alien girl was now tied to the fate of humanity. And if her story was true, they might be the only ones who could save her. As they prepared for the mission, there was a sense of unease, a feeling that this would not be a simple rescue operation. They were going into the unknown, where danger could be waiting at every turn. But they had no choice. The message had been sent, and humanity's response had already begun. The world was abuzz with questions after Lyra's message was decoded. Who was she? What did she know? Why would an alien from such an advanced civilization turn to humans for help? Governments, scientists, and military officials scrambled to analyze the data, but the truth was clear. The stakes were too high to ignore. The United Nations quickly formed a top-secret task force composed of the best minds and soldiers from around the globe. It was clear that if this wasn't a trick, Earth could be facing a threat far worse than anyone had imagined. Lyra's plea was real, and it was a cry for help that humans could not ignore. Colonel Sarah Hale was chosen to lead the mission. With years of military experience, Hale was known for her sharp leadership skills and her ability to make tough decisions under pressure. She had led countless operations before, but this was different. This wasn't just another enemy to fight. This was an unknown force, and the key to stopping it lay in the hands of an alien girl. Beside her was Dr. Aaron Price, a top expert in alien languages and galactic history. He had studied extraterrestrial cultures for years, but this was unlike anything he had ever encountered. Price had always been fascinated by the possibility of life beyond Earth, but now he was faced with the reality of a real alien, a girl who had reached out to humans in her time of need. The mission was clear: find Lyra and bring her back to Earth. But the task was far from easy. They had no idea where to start looking. Lyra's message had come from an unknown part of the galaxy, and the technology she used to send it was advanced beyond anything humans had ever encountered. It was a race against time, and the task force knew that if they didn't act quickly, Lyra could be lost forever, or worse, the Vorelians might find her first. A plan was set into motion. The team would travel in the most advanced spaceship Earth had ever built, a vessel capable of reaching distant star systems in a matter of days. With Colonel Hale's tactical expertise and Dr. Price's knowledge of alien languages, they hoped to trace the signal back to its source. The journey would be long, dangerous, and filled with unknown risks, but the team was ready. They knew the cost of failure. The first few days aboard the ship were tense. The crew had little information to go on other than Lyra's message. They studied her words carefully, searching for any clues that could lead them to her. Dr. Price worked tirelessly to analyze the message, trying to uncover any hidden meaning in the cryptic language of the Vorelians. Hale spent hours planning their next move, calculating possible routes and preparing for the worst. As the ship made its way into deep space, the enormity of the mission began to set in. The crew had become more than just a team. They were united by a single goal: to save Lyra. The doubts that had crept into their minds in the beginning slowly faded, replaced by a shared determination. As Earth's horizon disappeared behind them, they crossed into unknown space, leaving their home planet behind. They didn't know what awaited them, but they were ready. For Lyra, for the future of humanity, and for the chance to prove that humans could rise to any challenge, no matter how great. The journey had just begun, and already the team knew they were no longer just traveling to rescue an alien. They were embarking on something far bigger, an adventure that could change everything they knew about the galaxy and the role humanity would play in it. Days turned into weeks as the human team traveled deeper into space, navigating through the unknown. The vastness of the galaxy was both awe-inspiring and intimidating. Their destination was a star system far beyond Earth's reach, one that no human had ever visited. As they drew closer, the team could feel the weight of the mission pressing on them. The question that lingered in everyone's mind was the same: what kind of world would they be landing on? After what felt like an eternity, the crew finally arrived in the Vorelian star system. The planet they sought was a brilliant blue and green world, teeming with life. From a distance, it looked peaceful, beautiful even. But the team knew better than to trust appearances. The Vorelian people were known for their advanced technology, but also for their ruthless empire that spread across the stars. They had conquered planets, bent civilizations to their will, and ruled with an iron fist. As the human ship entered the planet's atmosphere, the crew could see towering cities, gleaming with advanced technology, but there was something unsettling about them. The buildings were tall and sharp, designed for efficiency rather than beauty. The streets were pristine, but empty. There were no signs of life, only cold, calculated order. It was a place that seemed more like a machine than a civilization. The team's mission was clear: find Lyra, uncover the truth about her people, and escape without alerting the Vorelian government. They were entering enemy territory, and the risks were higher than ever. Colonel Hale gave the orders. The team would split into smaller groups to search for Lyra in the sprawling metropolis. They would need to blend in, avoid detection, and gather as much information as they could. Dr. Price, with his knowledge of alien languages, would be crucial in deciphering any local communication and gaining access to restricted areas. Meanwhile, Hale's team of soldiers would handle any threats that might arise. As they moved through the city, the team began to notice strange things. People walked in perfect lines, eyes fixed ahead, not acknowledging each other. The Vorelian citizens seemed robotic, as if they were controlled by something greater. There was no joy, no laughter, no freedom in their movements. It was as though the very spirit of the planet had been suppressed. Price gathered what information he could, but it wasn't easy. The Vorelian language was complex, filled with symbols and codes that took time to decipher. Hale's soldiers kept watch, their senses on high alert. They had been warned that the Vorelians were not to be underestimated, but nothing could prepare them for the eerie silence of the city. Finally, after days of searching, they found something they hadn't expected: a hidden underground network of rebels. They were the outcasts, the ones who had refused to submit to the Vorelian regime. Lyra's name came up often in their conversations. They spoke of her as a hero, someone who had once fought for the truth but had been betrayed by her own people. The rebels had been waiting for the right moment to strike back, but they were too weak. They had no resources, no allies, and no way to challenge the Vorelian military. But there was hope. Lyra was alive. She was being held in a high-security facility in the heart of the city. The mission had just become more dangerous and more urgent. The team now had to infiltrate one of the most heavily guarded places on the planet, rescue Lyra, and escape without alerting the Vorelian government. The fate of Lyra, and perhaps the future of humanity, was in their hands. As they made their plans, the team knew one thing for certain: the Vorelian Empire was more corrupt than they had imagined, and Lyra's knowledge could be the key to bringing it down. But the road ahead would not be easy. It would be a battle not just for survival, but for freedom itself. The mission was now clear: find Lyra, rescue her from the high-security facility, and return to the ship before the Vorelians noticed anything was amiss. Colonel Hale stood before her team, their faces filled with determination. They had gathered all the information they could, and it was time to act. But nothing could prepare them for the level of danger that awaited them. The underground network of rebels had given them directions to the facility, hidden deep inside the Vorelian capital. It was a fortress, heavily guarded and protected by advanced security systems. Lyra's life was at stake, and so was the future of the entire mission. Every step had to be calculated. Every move had to be perfect. The team made their way through the darkened streets, blending into the crowd of Vorelian citizens. It wasn't easy. The Vorelian government was always watching, and the team couldn't afford to make any mistakes. They moved in silence, following the carefully laid-out plan. But as they neared the facility, Colonel Hale's gut told her something wasn't right. "Stay sharp," Hale ordered, her voice low and tense. They were close now, just a few blocks from their destination. But as they turned a corner, they were ambushed. Vorelian drones, small, hovering machines, suddenly appeared from the shadows, their bright red eyes scanning the team. The drones were programmed to detect any foreign presence, and the humans had just been spotted. "Get down," Hale shouted as the team dove for cover behind a nearby building. The drones fired a barrage of energy blasts, each one narrowly missing the humans. The soldiers returned fire with their weapons, but the drones were fast, much faster than anything they had encountered before. The drones zipped around them, dodging shots and firing back with deadly precision. The team was caught in a firefight, and it was clear the Vorelians knew they were there. "Move, move," Hale ordered as she led the team down a narrow alleyway. They had to regroup, come up with a new plan. The Vorelians were onto them now. They couldn't just waltz into the facility anymore. The whole city would be on alert. As they sprinted down the alley, Dr. Price stumbled, and Hale quickly pulled him to his feet. "Stay with me, Doctor. We need you." Dr. Price nodded, wiping sweat from his brow. "They must have detected us earlier. We didn't count on this level of surveillance. They must be more advanced than we thought," Hale muttered, scanning the alley for any more drones. The team continued to move cautiously, knowing that the Vorelian military was not far behind. They needed a plan, and they needed it fast. There was no time for hesitation. They'd reached an abandoned building and took refuge inside. The walls were cold and damp, and the air was thick with the smell of decay. This wasn't a safe place, but it was better than being out in the open. Hale quickly assessed the situation. They had no choice now but to break into the facility directly. The stealth approach was no longer an option. "We'll need to hit them hard and fast," Hale said, her voice calm but determined. "We get in, grab Lyra, and get out. No distractions. We move as a unit." The soldiers nodded, each one knowing what was at stake. It wasn't just Lyra's life on the line anymore. It was the future of humanity. If they failed, the Vorilians would come for Earth next. The time for hesitation was over. But just as they were about to leave the building, Dr. Price's voice broke through the tension. "Wait, there's something else. Something bigger." Hale turned sharply, her eyes narrowing. "What do you mean?" Dr. Price looked at his data pad, his face going pale. "The Vorilians, they're planning something. They're not just keeping Lyra prisoner. They're preparing for an invasion of Earth." The room fell silent. If what Dr. Price said was true, the mission had just become even more urgent. "We need to stop them," Hale said, her voice hardening. "We can't let this go any further. Earth's fate is in our hands now." With that, the team moved out, ready for the battle that would determine not only Lyra's future, but the future of their world. The team moved quickly, adrenaline pumping through their veins as they made their way to the Vorilian facility. The city's empty streets now felt more like a maze, the sense of danger around them growing with each step. They had been discovered, and there was no turning back. Colonel Hale's team knew the odds were stacked against them, but there was no other choice. Lyra's life depended on them. They arrived at the towering facility, its walls made of sleek, black metal that seemed to shimmer in the dim light. High-tech security systems surrounded the entrance, and Vorilian soldiers patrolled the area. The building was more like a fortress, with no visible weaknesses in the defenses. Every move they made now had to be calculated, or it could cost them everything. Colonel Hale crouched behind a large piece of machinery, scanning the area with sharp eyes. "We need to get inside, fast," she said, her voice steady despite the growing tension. "Price, what can you tell us about their security?" Dr. Price's fingers moved quickly over his datapad. He had studied the Vorilian technology for years, but seeing it in person was something else entirely. "The security is tough, but not impossible," he said. "There's a maintenance entrance on the east side. It's less guarded, and should give us a way in." Hale nodded. "Let's move out." The team made their way to the maintenance entrance, keeping to the shadows and avoiding the Vorilian guards. The quiet hum of the city around them seemed to amplify the fear in their chests. They knew they were running out of time. Lyra had been locked away for days, maybe longer. Each moment they delayed, the chances of her being moved or executed grew. When they reached the entrance, Dr. Price quickly worked on the lock, bypassing the Vorilian security systems with his knowledge of their technology. With a soft click, the door opened. The team slipped inside, their footsteps echoing in the narrow hallway. The facility's interior was a cold, sterile environment, full of blinking lights and harsh, metallic surfaces. It was as if the entire place had been designed to strip away any sense of humanity. There were no windows, no signs of life, just machines and guards. The team moved cautiously through the hallways, their eyes scanning every corner, every shadow. Finally, they'd reached the central control room. A large, intimidating door stood between them and their goal. They knew that Lyra was somewhere inside, but finding her wouldn't be easy. The facility was filled with high-level security, and they were risking everything by coming this far. Dr. Price turned to Hale. "There's a monitoring room on the other side of this door. I think we can access the security feeds from there. We'll be able to find Lyra." Hale didn't hesitate. "Do it." Price worked quickly, tapping away at his device to override the security systems. The door slid open with a quiet hiss, and the team slipped inside. The room was filled with monitors displaying various parts of the facility, including several cells. And there, on one of the screens, was Lyra. She was sitting on the floor of a small, dimly lit cell, her face bruised and weary. But her eyes were filled with a quiet strength. She wasn't broken, even though it was clear she had been through hell. The sight of her hit the team hard, especially Hale. This wasn't just a mission anymore. It was personal. Dr. Price zoomed in on the image. She's alive, but we don't have much time. They're moving her to another location soon. Hale clenched her fists. We're not letting that happen. Get me a plan. Price. Price quickly analyzed the facility layout on his datapad. We have to move fast. The guards are concentrated in the north wing. If we take the east corridor, we can reach her cell without raising too much alarm. Hale nodded. Let's go. As they made their way toward Lyra's cell, Hale could feel the weight of their mission pressing on her. They were getting closer, but they were also running out of time. Every moment brought them one step closer to being discovered, and if the Vorelians realized they were inside, it would all be over. But the closer they got to Lyra, the stronger their resolve became. They weren't just rescuing an alien, they were saving a life. And in doing so, they were stopping a much larger threat from reaching Earth. They had come for Lyra. But now, they knew the fate of two worlds rested in their hands. The team moved through the darkened halls, their every step calculated and silent. Colonel Hale's heart was pounding, but her focus was unwavering. They were close. They could feel it. Lyra was just ahead, but they had to be careful. Every turn could lead them straight into the hands of Vorelian guards. Dr. Price led the way, his device in hand, silently hacking into the Vorelian security system. He'd managed to disable most of the cameras, but there were still guards patrolling. The closer they got to Lyra's cell, the more vulnerable they became. Hale's soldiers were on high alert, weapons ready. They moved in pairs, scanning every corner, every shadow. The tension was thick in the air. Everyone knew that one mistake could be the end of the mission. The fate of Lyra, and possibly of Earth, hung in the balance. They reached a small hallway just outside Lyra's cell. Dr. Price paused and checked his datapad again. We're almost there. Lyra's cell is at the end of this hall. We'll have to get through a security checkpoint first. After that, it's clear. Hale nodded, giving the signal to move. They silently approached the checkpoint, two guards standing near the door. The guards' voices were low, but Hale could hear their words. I heard the higher-ups are moving her soon, one guard said. She knows too much. She's a risk. The other guard chuckled. Let her talk all she wants. She'll never get out of here alive. The Vorelians are smart enough to handle anything she throws at them. Hale's fists clenched. They were talking about Lyra like she was nothing more than a tool, a prisoner. Hale wouldn't let them win. Not now. Not when they were so close. She signaled to her team. In a flash, the soldiers moved. They took out the two guards quickly, silently, and without hesitation. The Vorelians didn't know what hit them. Dr. Price immediately moved to the control panel beside the door. His fingers flew across the buttons, bypassing the final layer of security. The door slid open with a soft hiss. Inside, Lyra was sitting on the floor, her arms bound but her head held high. She looked up when she heard the door open, her eyes widening in surprise as she saw the humans standing before her. You came, Lyra whispered, her voice hoarse but filled with gratitude. You really came. Hale knelt down beside her. We're here to get you out. You're safe now. But Lyra shook her head. Not yet. It's not safe here. The Vorelians, they're planning something bigger. They're not just after me. They want Earth. They'll destroy your world if they can. You have to stop them. Hale's heart sank. She had feared something like this, but hearing it from Lyra made it real. The Vorelians were preparing for war, and Earth was their next target. Tell us everything, Hale urged. What are they planning? How do we stop them? Lyra took a deep breath, her eyes scanning the room as if she expected danger at any moment. The Vorelians are building a fleet, a massive fleet. It's hidden on one of their moons, and it's ready to launch. They've been waiting for the right moment, and once they invade Earth, they'll enslave humanity, use your people for their own purposes. You won't be able to stop them unless you take out their main command center. Hale felt a surge of determination. Where is it? Lyra looked at her, her expression grave. It's located deep in the Vorelian capital, but it's not going to be easy to reach. The facility is protected by the most advanced defense systems they have. It's almost impossible to break through. Hale stood up, her mind racing. She knew what had to be done. The mission had gone from a simple rescue to a full-scale battle for survival. The stakes had just gotten much higher. "We'll find a way," Hale said firmly. "We're not leaving without stopping them." Lyra's eyes softened. "You don't understand. It's not just a facility. It's the heart of the Vorelian Empire. If we destroy it, we destroy everything they've worked for. It's the only way to end this." Hale nodded, resolute. "Then we'll destroy it. Together." With that, the team moved out, Lyra now an ally, not a prisoner. The next step was clear. They would infiltrate the heart of the Vorelian Empire and take down the force that could destroy Earth. The clock was ticking, and the fate of both worlds rested on their shoulders. The weight of their mission hung heavily over the team as they moved through the Vorelian capital, their minds focused on one goal: the destruction of the Vorelian command center. Lyra, once a prisoner, now stood at their side as an ally. Her knowledge of the Vorelian Empire was their only advantage, and they knew they had to act quickly. The fate of Earth was now tied to this dangerous plan. The city was eerily silent as they moved through the streets. The people of Vorelian seemed unaware of the chaos about to unfold. Every building, every corner, every shadow could be hiding a threat. The closer they got to the command center, the more tightly the security tightened. Guards patrolled the streets, and drones hovered above them, scanning for any signs of intruders. But Hale and her team were experts at stealth, and they knew how to avoid detection. The final stretch of their journey led them to a towering fortress at the center of the city. It was a massive, imposing structure with high walls, energy barriers, and watchtowers. The command center, where the Vorelians were preparing their invasion fleet, was inside. The door that led to it was locked and guarded by dozens of Vorelian soldiers. This was their last obstacle, and they knew that getting through would not be easy. Dr. Price, who had been quiet up until now, spoke up. "I can hack into the security systems and disable the barriers, but we'll have only a few minutes to act before the alarms go off." Hale nodded. "We don't need much time. Once we're inside, we move fast. Get us in, Price." With no time to waste, Price worked quickly, using his knowledge of Vorelian technology to break through the security systems. The energy barrier that surrounded the command center flickered and shut down. The team moved forward, slipping inside the facility. Inside, the building was like a maze, cold, metallic walls, and flashing lights everywhere. The team stayed in close formation, their eyes sharp, ready for any sudden move. Lyra led the way, guiding them through the hallways to the central chamber, where the heart of the Vorelian Empire's power lay. They reached the chamber doors, which were guarded by a heavily armed group of soldiers. The guards were too focused on their duties to notice the humans approaching. Hale made a split-second decision. "Take them out," she whispered. In a flash, the soldiers were neutralized, quiet, fast, and efficient. They had to keep moving. Once inside, they were met with rows of control panels, each one displaying the status of the fleet, military units, and other critical operations. But at the far end of the room, behind a large reinforced glass window, was the Vorelian commander, the mastermind behind the planned invasion. He was standing there, watching as his empire prepared for war, completely unaware of the human team's presence. Lyra's eyes burned with hatred as she saw him. "That's him. The one who sentenced me to death for refusing to follow his orders. If anyone is responsible for this war, it's him." Hale didn't hesitate. "We end this now." The team moved quickly, but just as they were about to take control of the command center, the alarms blared, filling the air with a shrill warning sound. The Vorilian forces had been alerted to their presence. "Price now," Hale shouted. Dr. Price quickly accessed the main control panel, overriding the system and triggering a countdown. "The fleet will be disabled in 5 minutes. We need to move now." With no time to waste, Hale ordered the team to plant explosives at key points throughout the building. The mission had changed from infiltration to a full-out assault. The countdown was ticking, and the Vorilian forces were closing in. They made their way out of the command center, explosions going off behind them. The walls shook, and the air was filled with smoke and fire. The building was crumbling around them, but they had one last objective: to escape alive. With the Vorilian fleet disabled and the command center in ruins, the team made their way back to the exit. But as they reached the outer gates, a group of Vorilian soldiers appeared, blocking their path. The final battle was upon them. Hale's team fought with everything they had. With a final push, they broke through the last line of defense and escaped into the night. As they made their way back to the ship, Hale looked around at her team. They were battered, bruised, but alive. The mission was a success. They had saved Lyra, stopped the Vorilian invasion, and secured Earth's future. The galaxy had just learned a powerful lesson. Humanity would not be so easily conquered. Together, they had proven that no empire, no matter how powerful, could stand against the strength and courage of humankind. And as they boarded their ship, ready to return to Earth, Colonel Hale couldn't help but smile. They had won, but the war for freedom would never truly end.